रह जाते हैं और जो बात उठाते हैं उनको धक्का मार के निकाल देते हैं।
If in Rajasthan low literacy levels have led to the BJP being elected, how did you come to power in Rajasthan 5 years ago? So have literacy levels gone down in your reign then?
Listen to me, viewers. Half of me is a Gaumutra drinking personality, half of me is a bigot, half of me, most probably, viewers, doesn't qualify to even live in the south according to the DMK. That's basically what is being told.
In this entire neo-left-driven academia, it's been intellectually corrupted and intellectually infiltrated by pan-Islamist agenda, which says calling for the culling of a particular community or the dismantling of another is perfectly fine in the academic discourse.
The issue is that you cannot insult voters. What the DMK essentially has done for the Congress party is insult the very same voters that the Congress party, having lost their confidence now in the 2023 state elections, in 2024, the same Congress party has to go back to those same voters and can ask for their votes.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Today marks another historic day in the history and future of Jammu and Kashmir. After August 5, 2019, December 11, 2023 marks another red letter day. 4 years after Modi government took the bold step of abrogating Article 370, several petitions were filed in the apex court which challenged the move. And today, 5-judge Constitution bench led by Chief Justice of India CJI Chandrachud decided to uphold the abrogation while setting the record straight on many aspects. 1. Jammu and Kashmir did not retain any element of sovereignty after its accession to India in 1947. 2. Article 370 was temporary and transitional provision of the Constitution. And lastly, the presidential proclamations of August 2019 were not nullified. Later, the apex court also pointed out that reorganization of the erstwhile state into union territories in 2019 was a temporary move. The court directed the centre to restore statehood to Jammu and Kashmir and hold the Legislative Assembly elections before September end 2024. Justice Kaul, in fact, part of the bench, also recommended in his concurring opinion that a Truth and Reconciliation Commission should also be set up in the state for an acknowledgement of the acts of violations of rights in the region, especially against a particular community. Looking at all the clear-cut observations by the Supreme Court, the question we ask today is this: will the political separatism now finally end? The narrative which has politically told the public in Jammu and Kashmir that the only relationship to India was hinged on a special status and fueled separatism and much more in the valley, will that now finally end? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. Let's take a deep dive into the Supreme Court order. I want to particularly highlight the portions that talk about the special status of Jammu and Kashmir or any inherent sovereignty. So the CJI read out the verdict and clearly stated that the bench came to a conclusion that Jammu and Kashmir did not retain any sovereignty when it merged with India. It wasn't conditional. A proclamation for state of Jammu and Kashmir, in fact, was issued in 1949 by Yuvraj Karan Singh himself. The declaration of proclamation stated that the Constitution of India would supersede all other provisions. It was always meant to be like this. The fact that it wasn't doesn't take away this hard legal reality. Hence, the instrument of accession ceased to be legal after the issuance of this proclamation is what the court has gone on to say, hopefully settling this debate once and for all. The court also claimed that the proclamation reflected full and final surrender of Jammu and Kashmir's sovereignty, and hence there was a clear absence of even a reference to sovereignty in Jammu and Kashmir's own constitution, mind you. Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India and it is evident in Article 1 and 370 clearly. Even Section 3 of the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution says that it is an integral part of India. So any conditions, preconditions that were posed, that we were told were part of the relationship between Jammu and Kashmir and its people and India and its people were actually not upheld by the Supreme Court at all. That is a political narrative. On ground, large legal facts say something very different. Very key also are the portions of the order where the bench upheld the President's order, which declared Article 370 null and void. Remember, it is the manner in which the decision was communicated or brought to effect is what was primarily challenged in court. So this is what the court has said on the President's order being valid. One, that the bench has held that Article 370 is a temporary provision. That Article 370 was introduced for transitional purpose. The court added that the interim arrangement was until Constituent Assembly was formed, and that was because of warlike conditions in the state. It also goes on to say the recommendation of the Constituent Assembly is not binding, did not bind the President as was the challenge from making this proclamation. When the Constituent Assembly ceased to exist, those special circumstances also ceased to exist. It goes on to say, very importantly, the President did not need to seek the concurrence of the state government, or in the words that were written in the documents, Constituent Assembly, or even if it is Legislative Assembly. It also goes on to say the President's exercise of power under Article 373 was not malified. It added that the exercise of power is malified only if it was exercised with an intent to deceive, which is not the case in this order. Interestingly, the court struck down that portion of the Constitutional Order 272 issued by the President on August 5, in which the President had amended Article 367. Article 367 contains certain general rules regarding the interpretation of the Constitution. By way of that Order 272, Article 367 had been amended and a new clause had been inserted by which reference to Constituent Assembly in Article 373(3) was replaced by Legislative Assembly. So that does not stand after today's judgment. The court has not looked kindly on that, on a circuitous manner in which this amendment was brought in. But regardless of that, the court has gone on to say that the President very much has the power to make this proclamation. The only question remaining now is this: will the political narrative that fuels separatism, the political separatism in the valley, now end?
Taken by the Union Executive, causing huge inconvenience.
जो हमारे देश के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा था, एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत, आज उस संकल्प को भी माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया ने प्रमाणित कर दिया है।
ये हमारी हार नहीं है, बल्कि आइडिया ऑफ इंडिया की हार, हिंदुस्तान के तस्वुर की हार।
मैं अपनी जगह ये भी कहना चाहता हूँ कि मामला यहाँ ख़त्म नहीं होता, हमारी कोशिशें यहाँ ख़त्म नहीं होंगी।
Hello, Moto.
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Farooq Renzu Shah is a former bureaucrat from Jammu and Kashmir. Syed Fazal Kashani is a political analyst, and also Shiv Khera, author, is joining us. Let me go across to Farooq Renzu Shah first up. The order from the Supreme Court is very, very clear. On all counts, it has held that the Government of India and the Parliament and the President are well within their rights to abrogate Article 370. We have to look forward. So I want to begin by asking you, will the political parties in Jammu and Kashmir accept this verdict? Because they seem like they don't want to, even today.
I tell you one thing, this decision of today, this has opened the eyes of everybody, even of those who were living in the world of illusion, and making people to resort to the violent phases, resort to the secessionist phases, resort to the anti-Indianism, resort to the criminal frenzies only for their political goals. Their political goal has been actually, it was hiding 1947's Himalayan blunder committed by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as well as he was the Maharaja's employee at the time. He was the chief emergency officer of who later on became the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir under dividing Kashmir into two, rather giving the most tragical and most fragmented, and which was river to sea, our which has annexed with India under the everybody accepts the accession. If everybody accepts the accession, why Gilgit and Baltistan was left over? Now today's this thing will now has exposed 3-4 factors very clear. Like even judiciary of Jammu Kashmir had once issued the order, the government judicial order was their judgment that Jammu Kashmir is the sovereign city. Today, Supreme Court has opened this. No, it was a fake. It was false. It was nonsense. You have merged, and merger
was not on any conditions. Absolutely.
Of the Jammu and Kashmir.
No, absolutely.
So
the merger was not on any
have been
conditions.
exposed.
If at all, the conditions came later. And those conditions also were brought in. Now, you could argue whether this was right or wrong, but those conditions were also brought in, as the court said, for further integration of Jammu and Kashmir, not its complete, the denial of integration into the rest of India. Farooq, let me also go across. Siddharth Yadav of the BJP is also joining us now, but let me also go across to Syed Fazil Kashani. Is it time for the likes of the Abdullahs and Muftis to finally accept that this Article 370 bogey is dead? This is like flogging a dead horse if they continue to do so after the Supreme Court's judgment as well.
The political parties of Jammu and Kashmir, for example, National Conference and PDP, they don't have any other option than to accept the verdict of Supreme Court. But the fact remains that this judgment has disappointed the people of Kashmir. It has disappointed the aspirations of Kashmir, because the way it was abrogated by keeping the entire state under curfew, not taking the people of Kashmir or Jammu into consideration or into confidence while taking this decision, remains a question. I mean, we must have seen a lot of things happening after abrogation of Article 370. Talk about the sentiments of the people. I mean, they are not happy with the decision from the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Because that was
Can I just touch upon this? Let me just break this down a little bit, Mr. Kashani, because you say the sentiments of the public are hurt. Now, sentiments is not what this case was fought on. I'll keep that separately, because sentiments run parallel to legal process. Legal processes are not, they cannot put a lid on sentiments. I accept that, and I, grant that submission. But the challenge that was made to this order was that it was not done correctly, in the sense that the Constituent Assembly's recommendation was not there, and therefore the President couldn't take that call. Now, you have to accept at least this much, that as far as legalities go, there is no challenge to this.
No, the government of India must have, they may have, won the case in Supreme Court and on legal terms, the way the procedure that they followed. But if you talk about the situation they created in 2019 when the article was abrogated, I mean, it does not justify that. I mean, you have...
I'll tell you what, there are ways to look at it, Mr. Kashani, because given the history of terrorism, given the history of separatism, and given the history of on-ground on-ground danger to lives, I think one could also argue the government was justified in doing what it did.
No, I mean, that is what I am saying. I mean, the government of India kept the entire state under curfew for months. I mean, people who were outside Jammu and Kashmir, they were not able to connect with their families. We have seen that time.
I know, but we're not discussing just that. I understand the point you're making, but we're not discussing, you know, the curfew or what the conditions were. I'm purely discussing the judgment and whether that judgment and all the falsehoods, for example, that have been spread in the minds of Kashmiris for 70 years, that will have to end somewhere or the other. Someone will have to get up and say that, okay, maybe what we thought was not correct. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, sorry, can you repeat the question? Your voice was breaking.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll just come back to you. Shiv Khera is also with us. Siddharth Yadav of the BJP is also with us. Mr. Khera, what do you think? Because if we go by the reactions coming in from the Kashmir politicians today, they still feel that they will continue to tell the public that some injustice has happened to them. The special status or the conditions of accession to India as claimed by them have not been upheld by the Constitution or by the Supreme Court of India. How do you see this?
Ma'am, I welcome the Supreme Court judgment. I think it was way past due to begin with. Kashmir is an integral part, was integral part, and what the Supreme Court has given the judgment is excellent. I also wonder, why did they even admit this case? Where is the question of discussion that is going on the way it is going on right now? And the people who are disagreeing with this judgment, they are the ones who are filling their pockets, totally selfish. They were making money right, left, and center. They became billionaires at the cost of the state and the country. And to them, it will never be accepted. In my opinion, it is treachery with the nation. People who don't agree with that, it is a big human rights issue. It is an integral issue for the nation. And I feel people who are traitors to the country, they will never agree with these judgments. They will always want India to be weak, broken all the time. And hence, these people, I don't want to be any more further, but they should really not be Indians anymore. Their passport should be taken away.
Mr. Yadav, the fundamental question today is that there is a certain type of political narrative and politics that has been played in Jammu and Kashmir for 70 years that allowed many falsehoods to be embedded in the minds of the public. That told them that, listen, we have a conditional relationship to India. And if that conditions are not met, then as one politician very famously said, "Khoon ki nadiyan beh jayengi." This is the problem. But will that narrative today end or not?
Very right, Shivani, and I think it was told both sides. It was also told to the rest part of the country that this is one problem which can never be solved. We were always conditioned in a way that this is something which will continue for eternity. This has been since we were born, and this is going to be till we are going to die. And that is what has changed. And I think that is the biggest takeaway from what happened in 2019, and what has been now upheld by the Supreme Court. I think what the Supreme Court has upheld today is welcoming. We should all welcome that. And not only just because the constitutional validity has been upheld, because I think it also serves as a ray of hope for all Indians, including people in Jammu and Kashmir. Because after the abrogation of Article 370, the narrative was not dying. The narrative was still there. The people still wanting that the problem should persist were trying to tell the people everywhere that this is not the solution.
But will this die now?
Shivani,
but will it
this
die
is
now?
The solution. This has ended. It has ended. It will end. It has already ended. Let me tell you, it has already ended. There were more than 1900 cases of stone pelting in 2018. There are 0 today. There were 52 organized shutdowns of Jammu and Kashmir in 2018. 0 today. What has on ground, most of it has ended. Now, a certain section of the political section of our country, if they want to continue with the problem that they created themselves, this was a self-created problem of one regime of our country. If they want to continue with that, and if they feel that this narrative is going to stay, I think the people of the country are already responding to that.
Okay, have the people of Jammu and Kashmir responded adequately enough?
Narendra Modi.
No, have the people of Jammu and Kashmir responded adequately enough for these politicians to change their politics? Farooq Renzusha, I ask you that question again. What will you tell parties like the National Conference and the PDP today, who are hell-bent in ensuring that they continue this narrative that somehow some injustice has been done to the people of Jammu and Kashmir? What will you tell them? Is this a fruitful politics for them to play on, or will the public reject this politics?
I think rather than you and me telling them, or people of Kashmir telling them, or people of Jammu or people of Ladakh telling them, it should be now election commission to get an affidavit from those parties that they accept and abide the Supreme Court decision, and they will not befool like 70 years again people of Kashmir in the name of 370. Or some leader has today said it is like a Babri Masjid. What has been done to 370? What has been done to Babri Masjid? So it is a criminal type of frenzy. So if it is not done, and even they should not be allowed to contest the election, because election contest is basically a problem from the 1947, 1952. Even opponents were being kidnapped and killed.
But what do you think, Mr. Shah? Politicians will play politics. I want to understand from you.
Today also, one second, please. Today also, they want to use this, that we will continue the struggle. What is the struggle? Struggle is Kashmiri have been divided, spoiled. Kashmiri ethnic has been, civilization has been slaughtered. Exodus has been engineered for the sake of these votes. Like, election commission should first bring these Kashmiri Pandits here and take the property taken by those politicians of Kashmiri Pandits and hand over to them.
You raise an important point. By no means have all issues in Jammu and Kashmir been settled. There are many issues, not the least of them pertaining to Kashmiri Pandits. But I do want to ask you very quickly, before I take a final comment from all of our guests, Mr. Renzu, what is the response from the public you feel? Ultimately, that is supreme. Do you think these parties will learn the lesson from the public itself?
I am talking to you, and I am in Kashmir soil. I'm talking to you in Kashmir and wearing a Kashmiri pattern also, and living in Kashmir. Today, from morning till evening, whosoever I met in the area from Lal Chowk and everywhere in the Shaykh Khas, everybody was telling that we have been befooled by the politicians. These local politicians have befooled us always, and they were showing us the wrong paths and just guiding us to resort to the violence. Even some days before, some politicians said that Kashmir is Gaza. These politicians want to make a parallel of Kashmir and Gaza so that they win the votes. Please convey the message of the people of Kashmir. People of Kashmir have never, from today, these stone pelters belonging to the political parties. Now, even they have been adjusted in the police departments, in the recruits. There was a drive recruiting them in the police department.
Okay. So I want to take final comments from Syed Kashani as well. Syed Kashani, you could argue, depending on who you speak to, there will be different views amongst Kashmiris. But see, the writing is on the wall. And I feel like over the last 4 years, a lot of people, even in Kashmir, have come to the realization that the path that they were taken down to was not of their benefit at all.
We have seen a lot of good changes also. Let me agree to that. I mean, the law and situation has become better. But now it is the responsibility of the central government that the land rights and the right to jobs are secured for Kashmiris, because here you don't have any major private sector or the industries working. The people of Kashmir are dependent completely on the agriculture, the tourism industry and the government jobs.
Okay.
So we need to make sure that the jobs, the right to jobs and the right to land is secured for the people of Kashmir and Jammu.
Well, we'll wait and see what the government really says on this, because that's a recurring demand coming in from Kashmiris. Shiv Khera, 30 seconds to you too. What will your message be to political parties in Jammu and Kashmir today?
All I can say is politicians will continue playing politics. They will never look at the country. They are only looking for their own selfish hungry people. But all I can say is one thing, last thing is that anybody who opposes such things and creates a disintegration of the nation should be dealt with an iron hand. I repeat, they should be with the iron hand, and that's it. They should not be taken lightly the way government should do it with an iron hand.
No, you're right. For a very long time, we have mollycoddled separatist narrative in the open against India. And after this judgment, there should be no space for that kind of narrative. But we are a democracy. There are certain constraints in a democracy too.
No. This is not you can't hide behind democracy. It has to be treated. That thing is about the nation.
I get your point. Mr. Yadav, my final question to you is also on what Justice Kaul said today, that there should be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to at least acknowledge the injustices done to Kashmiri Pandits who had to flee their homeland and are still being tagged as migrants. The BJP government has been in power for 10 years, has done barely little on this.
Done anything?
No, I think Shivani, we should never look at this way, because I think it is only the commitment of BJP and only the commitment of Prime Minister Modi that we are even having this discussion today. We would not have been discussing this. We would not have been discussing Kashmiri Pandits. We would not have been discussing any court judgment. We would not have been discussing, as my friend was saying, private players, industries being setting up in Kashmir. Nothing. The only debate on any national television would have been about how many stone peltings are there, how many killings are there, what is the insurgency, what is the infiltration. That's it. If the situations have changed, I think it is going to be very unfair for us to comment that the BJP government has done very little. I think a lot of things are in place. A lot of things are following of what the developments have already been made. The Kashmiri Pandits will be given their due share. The new bill present in the parliament definitely also calls for that. The Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is also on its way. It must be come back. It's the commitment of our party. But I think the entire change that has been brought to the state of Jammu and Kashmir and the new ray of hope that the entire country is looking at must be attributed to the committed leadership of Prime Minister Modi, and that is why the country is welcoming this decision today.
All right, I leave it on that. There is an important discussion that is taking place in Rajya Sabha too. Home Minister Amit Shah is expected to respond on the reorganization bill of Jammu and Kashmir. But I do thank our guests for joining us. Moving on to another special guest joining us, that's Supreme Court Advocate CJI Deepak. Let's go across to CJI Deepak. Thanks a lot for your time. So, important judgment. Would it be fair to say, to condense it, that the Supreme Court has said that while there may have been some special provisions for Jammu and Kashmir, which in itself are transitory and temporary, a special status does not mean sovereignty. Would you agree that that's really the essence of the judgment? Because in popular narrative, it was being suggested that the Union of India cannot do what it did because Jammu and Kashmir is somehow separate.
So I think this judgment has clarified 2 or 3 aspects. First, that the instrument of accession in itself bestows upon Bharat sovereignty over any province or princely state that has become a part of Bharat through that particular instrument. So that has been clarified. And second, the fact that the Constitution of India continues to supersede any other local constitution that may have been in existence or that may have come into existence subsequently is clearly captured. And which is why the provisions of the Indian Constitution as well as provisions of Kashmiri Constitution have been read together to come to the very clear conclusion that there is no element of residual sovereignty that's been retained by the state before or after the coming into force of the Kashmir Constitution. Okay, so that much is absolutely clear. Second, the fact that Kashmir has been included as part of India's list of states, okay, and the opening provisions of the Kashmiri Constitution itself clearly state that they are a part of Bharat and India, so to speak. I think these aspects have been gone into, coupled with statements or declarations made by the representatives of the state after the accession, such as the statement of Viraj Karan Singh at that point has been recorded very clearly. So I think it's a crystal clear statement, and I'll tell you why this is also crucial. We've been hearing a lot of unlettered comments in the last few months about how India is a union of states, so on and so forth, and these kind of issues have been raised. The reason why this becomes crucial is a state under India, or let's say under the Indian framework or the federal framework, is nothing but an administrative region, okay, which operates under the center, which is very different from the Federation of United States, where different states have come together to form a union.
Right.
That's not the case with us, okay? And if you look at how we divide our powers, so to speak, between the state list, the central list, and the concurrent list, the kind of powers that the union list has over legislations which even the state has prerogative over, or for that matter, with respect to the concurrent list, we have doctrines such as the doctrine of colorable legislation, where if the union happens to pass a legislation on a subject which is covered by the concurrent list, and the state also passes a legislation, the union legislation, so to speak, shall prevail under this particular doctrine. all of this only go on to reinforce how we have treated this as an inseparable, indivisible union, and therefore there is no element of secessionism or separatism or residual sovereignty that any state retains upon becoming a part of the union. So I think this judgment has a second order effect as well in light of the controversy that we hear these days.
Yes, absolutely. Glad you mentioned that. But speaking of the impact of this judgment, one question that many are asking is, what about other states that also have special provisions? What happens to those special provisions? What impact do you think this judgment can have, or if at all?
See, the point is, one is a question of the severability of the relationship. And the second aspect is extra treatment that a particular state may deserve because of its historical consequences or its historical legacy. Okay. So I don't think this judgment has the impact of taking away any additional provisions that Bharat may have carved out in favor of Kashmir without undermining its own irrefutable claim of sovereignty over that territory.
Right.
Okay. So this judgment or any observations made in the context of 370 don't have an impact with respect to the Northeast. They don't have an impact with respect to the sixth schedule, so to speak. At least not to the extent of undermining any special provisions. But this much is clear, no provision relating to any state can be used to make the claim that there is a residual sovereignty, whether you call it under a temporary provision or a special provision or a transient provision, because the instrument of accession shall prevail across the board. And having taken the decision to become part of the Indian Union through the instrument of accession, you don't get to revoke or reverse that particular consequence. To that extent, I think it will have a bearing.
Being an integral part of India is not conditional. That much has been settled by this judgment. But Sai Deepak, I want your opinion on the other thing that not many saw coming. Justice Kaul's judgment, mentions that there should be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission set up. He talks about intergenerational trauma that Kashmiri Pandits have suffered and how this needs to be addressed. But interestingly, he also goes on to say that this commission should not become a criminal court. That this is not about, this is only about executing a dialogue and bringing the truth forward, not really about punishment. How do you look at that?
I'm happy that this court has finally taken a position on the need for truth and reconciliation, which could perhaps be the way forward for several legacy issues that Bharat faces as a consequence of its traumatic history. However, I'm certainly not I'm not on the same page on why there should be no criminal action. See, the thing is, the anti-Sikh riots cases still go on, at least since 1984. Whether or not they have reached any kind of meaningful fruition is a different question. But the state has not deemed it fit to drop those cases on the ground ki 20 saal ho gaye ya 25 saal ho gaye.
Right.
Okay. The forced exodus of Kashmiri Pandits or their cultural genocide is an incident that happens after 1984, right? In 89 and 90. So it is of recent currency compared to the anti-Sikh riots. So to say that there is no need for or there should be no criminal prosecution, which means that there is some kind of a de facto limitation on criminal prosecution that the Supreme Court is reading into the genocide that has been meted out to a particular community. Okay, the fact is, if limitation as a concept does not apply in the context of individual cases, why should it apply in the context of collective cases? It should apply. It should not apply even more.
Yeah.
Otherwise, where is the deterrent? And for the Supreme Court to say that let there be no criminal action initiated on these, let's say, in relation to this persecution, could have some kind of an unnecessary chilling effect on any step that the government may want to take at some point. See, already the Supreme Court has dismissed 2 petitions in the past asking for reopening of criminal cases. So I think it's almost like a final nail in the coffin.
Yes, there's a lot of consternation amongst Kashmiri Pandits that their plea to look into these cases has been rejected a couple of times. But I do want to clarify one thing, Sai Deepak, that there are some cases, individual cases, that are being reopened. Do you feel this observation made by Justice Kaul asking the government of India to do this in a time-bound manner, that is no bar that an individual cases cannot be opened up? It really wouldn't shut the door on that.
No, I don't think it shuts the door on individual cases, but you have to realize that when Gujarat happened in 2002, then there were tribunals being set up, not just to pursue individual cases, but to look at the issue as a whole. Okay. So on the one hand, when you recognize the need for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which clearly recognizes that it is a group-related incident, okay, and on the other hand, you say let there be no criminal prosecution that comes as a consequence of this Truth and Reconciliation Commission, frankly speaking, defeats the very purpose. So what does it mean? It means only a token acknowledgement कि आपके साथ ये नाइंसाफी हुई. That's right. That statement can be issued even without a Truth and Reconciliation Commission being established. Somewhere, someone has to be held accountable. And we are not talking of random statements being made, but actual acts of mass murder, sexual abuse, and forced sex arrest. If the Indian state continues to be soft on this, frankly speaking, that template is being repeated across the board in several other states. What kind of a message are you sending? That there will be no consequences whatsoever, right?
Yes.
So while I certainly welcome the suggestion for Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I don't think there should have been a comment on the need for or otherwise of any kind of criminal prosecution on a group basis. That could have been avoided.
Yeah, but can I just ask for clarity for our viewers? It still depends on the government though, isn't it? If they do take this forward, what manner they take this forward means is up to them. They don't really have to bind it in any manner.
So it certainly depends on the government. It just so happens that, to be fair to the court as well, it's not as if the government itself has shown any kind of initiative to reopen such cases on a group basis. It may have done so selectively on a case-to-case basis where it believes that there is some kind of credible material or there is some kind of recent material, so on and so forth. But there was no bar on the government till date and still there was no initiative. With this line being added in the Supreme Court's judgment, if at all there was any residual initiative left in the government, I think even that has been taken up.
Yeah, but I still will press, it doesn't mean that when the government sets up a commission, it has to go by what Justice Kaul said and that there will be no criminal consequences. They can still set up a commission and say that no, punishments will be doled out.
Correct. There is no bar there legally speaking. This judgment does not have the effect of taking away the power of the government to have criminal consequences emanating from any such commission that it constitutes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So it has come as a mixed bag really. Justice Kaul's recommendations for this Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Jai Sai Deepak, Advocate, Supreme Court, thanks a lot for joining us with your views on the larger issue as well, which is of course the historic decision of upholding the abrogation of Article 370. On the other side of a very short break, we'll get you more exclusive conversations on the same. Vikramaditya Singh, the grandson of Maharaja Hari Singh, is joining us on this Supreme Court verdict.
Hello, Moto.
Co-powered by
Welcome back. Thanks a lot for staying with us. And we have some big breaking developments coming in. Mohan Yadav has now been announced as the new Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh. He is the pick that has been announced by the BJP. He is an MLA from Ujjain South. So a surprise by the BJP once again, because the big contenders, the names that were doing the rounds, in fact, did not have the name of Mohan Yadav. Let's go straight to our colleague Aman. Aman, exactly what we were discussing. Will the BJP have a surprise up its sleeve? Mohan Yadav now being announced as the new Chief Minister. Tell us, what has he done so far? I believe he is the MLA from Ujjain South currently.
Yes, Ridhima, again, BJP living up to its reputation, throwing up a surprise, a name which has not been speculated so far, Mr. Mohan Yadav. He is a three-time MLA of the BJP from the Ujjain Dakshin seat. What we are learning, this is the third time he was elected from Ujjain Dakshin, and he is also seen as somebody who's close to the RSS, has close RSS links, has been in the good books of the RSS, a disciplined man, a low-profile leader. this is what we are hearing about Mr. Mohan Yadav, and also, of course, this message to the OBC community. Correct. As we were earlier discussing, that BJP would go for an OBC face after Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and the choice is a surprise choice in Mr. Mohan Yadav, a third-time MLA. If I'm looking up his profile, which has been shared by the party now, it's about that he is a agriculturist, and he has been started his political career in 1982 as a student from the Mahavidyalaya Chhatra Sangh as a Sahasachiv. In 1984, he has been associated with the ABVP in his earlier days. Also, we are learning that he has worked in Ujjain for the party in a big way, and has been he was first elected as an MLA in 2013. 2013 is the first time that he was elected as an MLA from this seat. 2018 he won again from this seat, and now the third time he won from Ujjain Dakshin again. So Ujjain coming in the center of the Madhya Pradesh politics. Ujjain is also a major center, religious center in the context of Madhya Pradesh. We have the Mahakaleshwar temple there, of course. So Ujjain Dakshin MLA Mr. Mohan Yadav, an OBC message from the BJP, a young face. Correct. He is 1965 born, so he's about
he's 58.
He's 58 years old, so younger than Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and Mr. Vishnu Sai was 59-year-old yesterday, if I remember correctly, from Chhattisgarh. So 58-year-old person, Mr. Mohan Yadav, will be the Chief Minister. Again, a big surprise by the party, and all the speculated names, Ridhima, have evaporated now, and we can see that a new face, a young face, has been chosen by the BJP.
Actually, one shouldn't be surprised with the new face being announced, because that seems to be the pattern as far as the BJP is concerned. But Aman, we'll just request you to stay on with us. We also have our colleague Arun Dhanta now joining us. So Arun, Mohan Yadav, who's now being announced as the new Chief Minister, as Aman was pointing out, another OBC face that has been picked by the BJP. Tell us a little more about him. Our research team is also sending us some details. We're understanding he in fact was a Minister of Higher Education as far as the Shivraj government is concerned. What all has he done so far, and why has the BJP decided that they can put their faith and confidence in Mohan Yadav leading up to the general elections of 2024?
Well, I think, Ridhima, it's a huge surprise. Nobody was expecting this name, but that's how it is with the Bharatiya Janata Party. And remember that Mohan Yadav is somebody who has been very close to Shivraj Singh Chauhan. He is an OBC. He worked very closely with Shivraj Singh Chauhan. He was a minister in his government, he's not somebody who has, like in case of you have Deputy Chief Minister. Jagdish Deora, he's 8-time MLA and also a finance minister in the tenure of Shivraj Singh Chauhan. So in that sense, Mohan Yadav is not that senior, but still he was given the opportunity. Of course, OBC factor has worked here as well for him, because more than 50% of population of Madhya Pradesh is of OBC, and BJP has once again gone with the OBC formula at the helm. As we were discussing earlier, that all three chief ministers that state had seen up until today, they all were from the OBC community, and the trend, in fact, taken forward by BJP. So Mohan Yadav will be new Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, alongside with two his deputies, Rajendra Shukla and Jagdish Deora. So Jagdish Deora, 8-time member of MLA, very close to Shivraj Singh Chauhan. He was finance minister during his tenure, and also Rajendra Shukla. So these two be the deputy of Mohan Yadav. So
that's the update that our colleague Arun is in fact breaking for us, that the same formula that was seen in Chhattisgarh will be followed in Madhya Pradesh as well. Mohan Yadav will be the new Chief Minister. You'll have Rajendra Shukla and Jagdish Deora, who in fact will then become his deputies. Aman, coming to you, any clarity as far as the Speaker is concerned?
Well, it could be Narendra Singh Tomar. That's what we are hearing. We still are waiting confirmation of that. It may be Narendra Singh Tomar. A senior leader has to be made the Speaker. We saw that Mr. Raman Singh becoming the Speaker in Chhattisgarh yesterday. So it could be a senior leader like Mr. Narendra Singh Tomar. But what I'm also hearing is that Shivraj Singh Chauhan proposed the name of Mr. Mohan Yadav at the legislature party meeting. He seems to have the blessings of Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan. and it seems to be that, you know, when the consultations were done on who should take over from Shivraj Singh Chauhan, his was one of the name which was recommended. So in a way, it seems that Mohan Yadav has the blessings of Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and he is also the preferred choice as an OBC face. Clearly, Mr. the BJP not going for Prahlad Singh Patel as an OBC face of what was being speculated. BJP going for Mohan Yadav from Ujjain Dakshin seat, a 3-time MLA and a former minister in the Shivraj Singh Chauhan government. So somebody who is close to Shivraj Singh Chauhan, somebody who has good RSS links, somebody who's seen as a disciplined soldier of the party, being chosen by the BJP in Madhya Pradesh.
Okay, Aman, we'll request you to stay on with us going back.
There were a lot of things that have been debated for 70 plus years on that instrument of accession itself. Today, it seems the Supreme Court judgment that has come on the abrogation of Article 370 has also set the record straight on the instrument of accession itself, which is that, you know, once that was signed, there was no concept of an inherent sovereignty left with Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes, I welcome the Supreme Court judgment today. We were all looking forward to it, and I agree with all the points that were listed out earlier on and everything that was highlighted. And yes, this makes it very clear. I mean, the fact is that the Maharaja chose the Union of India to accede to, and once the accession took place, he lost his sovereign powers. So to argue that he still had sovereign powers, it was a different matter that he was then asked to leave the state, and in order for the transition from the princely state to take place to the Union of India, Dr. Karan Singh, his son, at that time Yuvraj Karan Singh, was appointed as regent, to enable that transition to happen. That was all a transitionary phase. So yes, I completely agree with you, and that there should be no debate on that issue.
Even Yuvraj Karan Singh, you mentioned, has been referred to in the judgment that even he accepted at that time that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. Even Jammu and Kashmir's so-called constitution accepted that fact. So when you take everything into totality, whether Article 370 could stand or whether the Parliament could, abrogate it, that question does not arise. The Supreme Court is very clear on where Jammu and Kashmir stood after that instrument was signed.
Absolutely, and the fact that they say very clearly that the Article 370 was a process of integration that's taken place. So the past 70 years, this process of integration has been taking place. So everything that has happened over these past 70 years is moving ahead towards that process. And what we saw in August of 2019, which was the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A and the rest of it, was simply the culmination of this whole process. It has taken time. So I think we are moving in the right direction, and it should have happened a long time ago, in my opinion, but there will be a lot of people who will differ with that. But the fact is that the Supreme Court has set out a very clear-cut judgment and outlined everything in it.
Do you feel, Vikramaditya Singh, that somewhere the history from Maharaja Hari Singh to, let's say, today or till 2019, some of those things that happened pre and post independence were misrepresented in Indian politics in Jammu and Kashmir to lead possibly the public up to a garden path, for them to believe that somehow Jammu and Kashmir was different, special, and also sovereign in some sense?
Absolutely, I can't even begin to start telling you the negative and the misplaced mindset, a narrative that has been set over the years, which has now started to be rectified over the past 15-17 years about both the Dogra rulers pre-independence, Maharaja Hari Singh, and what happened post. I mean, the fact that there's hardly any mention of the fact that the entire region of Jammu and Kashmir, which included vast tracts of Central Asian territory, etc., were all brought together by the Dogra rulers and the Rajas who fought and were killed in those areas of Tibet and the rest of it. It's also a different matter that we have very little of that erstwhile princely state left with us. But the whole narrative and history itself has not done justice to the contribution of the Dogras and the way Maharaja Hari Singh served his duties as Maharaja, the last Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, and the kind of things that he did. It's only now coming to limelight. Otherwise, everything was just brushed aside, and a completely new narrative starting from Sheikh Mohammad Abdullah and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru began, which of course took this whole country and the discussion on a very negative and a different plateau.
Even till today, there are some voices from Jammu and Kashmir, or the mainstream politics in Jammu and Kashmir are suggesting that this is somehow injustice to the aspirations and what was promised to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, that it became a part of India on some conditions. That this was a Muslim majority state, so-called princely state, that chose India over Pakistan, but it was done over certain conditions. How would you respond to those individuals today?
See, let's make one thing very clear. The only sovereign ruler, the person who could take the decision whether he should join the Islamic State of Pakistan or the Republic of India was Maharaja Hari Singh. Maharaja Hari Singh signed the same instrument of accession which was signed by over 550 other princely states. It's a different matter that we were a border state with an 80% Muslim majority population ruled by a Hindu king. That perhaps created its own frictions, and the fact that the whole partition of India and various other issues that played a key role during that time did have an effect. I'm not saying that, but there cannot be any denying that there was any third option available. It was either joining Pakistan or joining the Union of India, and he clearly chose to join the Union of India. So where is that discussion today?
Once that decision was made, then effectively it should be laid to rest. The other interesting aspect of this challenge was that the Constituent Assembly was not consulted, quote unquote consulted, although that Constituent Assembly ceased to exist. But the court is also very clear here that even the Constituent Assembly was created for a specific reason. It was there for a specific reason because of certain conditions. Article 370 was temporary and transitory in nature. And all of that was to fundamentally integrate with India further, not to disintegrate with India. But the court is also very clear that the Constituent Assembly's ratification was not binding on the president. In other words, the president can unilaterally declare that Article 370 is void.
Absolutely right, and I completely agree with the court's decision, but you have to understand why this feeling is there today. You see, for decades and decades, the people of Jammu and Kashmir have been misled to believe something totally different. That the fact that Article 370 was put in place, the fact that special status was granted for a completely different reason, as though J&K is at some point in time going to become Azad or is going to become a different state within a state. Which is why you had two separate flags, two separate constitutions. I mean, these were all basically transitory steps towards integration of India. But because it suited the powers that be during that time to control the state, to shut it down from all other areas, and to completely keep the control in the hands of a few, they set forward a very negative and a narrative that suited them. So today, when things are the process of rectification and setting things right is happening, the people are saying, what is this? This was not what was sort of promised, or this was not what happened. So these things are going to take time for people to understand and realize all of this. But it's all moving forward. It's a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Speaking on what has transpired today, Home Minister Amit Shah has just put the record straight on another statement made by Omar Abdullah. He has gone on to say on record in Rajya Sabha that no leader has been put under house arrest. This is after Omar Abdullah released a video message saying that he is unable to respond to the Supreme Court judgment and meet people and talk about it, including the media, because he's been put under house arrest. He has earlier released a video in which he said this. My colleague Arunima is also joining us with more on this. So the clarification has come in from none other than the Home Minister today, Arunima.
I don't know whether the opposition is satisfied with the response or not. Digvijay Singh raised the matter. He said Mehbooba Mufti has been put under house arrest. And he said that her daughter has tweeted out a video of the locked gate, to which Home Minister said that the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha has already this morning issued a soundbite and said that nobody was under house arrest. But I want to put it on parliamentary record, and therefore I'm standing up and saying it. But what the opposition leaders are pointing out is that when August 5th, 2019, after the abrogation happened and there were debates in Lok Sabha subsequently, even at that point members had raised queries about where Farooq Abdullah was, and they had said that Farooq Abdullah was under detention and Home Minister had denied it. So it's the same chapter playing out again. Home Minister once again denying that anybody is under detention. Opposition not satisfied.
Yes, well, we wait and see exactly what can be done about this. But Arunima, I do want to ask you quickly about what is transpiring in Rajya Sabha. The Home Minister is all set to, respond to the opposition on the reorganization, Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bill. Just give us the latest on that.
Yes, so he will respond in just a bit. We are expecting him to take take the position any moment now. But right now, BJP's Uttar Pradesh MP Sangeeta Yadav is speaking, one of the last few speakers. And HM is not really waiting for his full speech to make rebuttal. He's taking on the opposition wherever he feels there is a need. For example, with CPIM, John Brittas, he logged horn and said that Nehru was the reason for the entire Kashmir problem. He said if there was no Nehru, there was no requirement for this discussion because he was the root cause of all problems. There have been back and forth with Vijay Singh over Jawaharlal Nehru. There has been back and forth with the other opposition leaders as well. So HM is already making it a point. He countered, the MP from All India Trinamool Congress on the issue of severe power cuts in winters earlier this afternoon. But when he takes the floor to respond to these two bills, express a much aggressive reply.
Even as he does so, and as we are on standby for that, Arunima, for the benefit of our viewers, just take us through the salient features of the bills related to Jammu and Kashmir that the government has already passed in Lok Sabha and is of course looking to pass in Rajya Sabha as well.
So two bills are being discussed at the moment. One is the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Amendment Bill and the other is the Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Bill. Between the two bills, what is essentially happening is making, a provision for 3 nominated members to represent the Kashmiri Pandit community and the tribal community in the Kashmir Legislative Assembly. As and when elections happen, there should be 3 seats reserved for them, nominated by the Lieutenant Governor. Opposition has an issue with this also. They say if you're allowing the LG to nominate, are you keeping a back door open? Because Bharatiya Janata Party is not sure of its own electoral numbers. So that's also a back and forth that has happened. As far as POK is concerned, the current government calls it POJK, Pakistan Occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and says that is an integral part of India, even Aksai Chin for that matter, Priyanka Chaturvedi pointed out. And saying that, when POJK is taken over, jurisdictionally when it becomes part of Jammu and Kashmir, there should be enough seats reserved for their members, so 24 seats being reserved for them as well. So that's the sum total. How will Jammu and Kashmir Assembly look like as and when it smoothly functions, which all sections of the society will be represented? That is the essence of this bill. But the discussion that is happening is much wider. It is starting from Pandit Nehru's role to why 370 was brought in, to even the Supreme Court verdict today. And I think Home Minister will put on record the government's view as far as Article 370 verdict of the Supreme Court is concerned.
All right, we'll wait for that. Arunima, thanks a lot for joining us. Speaking of that big judgment by the Supreme Court today, lots of reactions, especially from Kashmir-based parties. Altaf Bukhari, chief of JKAP, also spoke to CNN News 18 on this big verdict. Listen in. Let's go across to Altaf Bukhari, Jammu and Kashmir. Apni party president now joining us for his first reactions on the big judgment of the Supreme Court. Mr. Bukhari, would you not concede that after the ratification of the Supreme Court today on all counts, it is time for Jammu and Kashmir parties to accept the new reality?
While we are disappointed because we had expected the Supreme Court to uphold the Article 370. But with a heavy heart, there is no other option, but we have to bow our heads before the judgment of the Supreme Court. Having said so, I always believe that this was less of a legal matter, this is more of a political issue, and it should have been fought in the People's Court, not in the Judicial Court. Nevertheless, the issue will remain alive in the People's Court.
Okay. In fact, taking on from what you just said, that this was not so much a legal issue per se. Many would say they saw it coming. But as you say, this is more a political issue. I will add a word to it. It is more an emotional issue. Would you agree to that? And that is why you believe that parties like yourself will continue to go to the people with this issue?
No. I agree, because the political parties which were in power for last 75 years hoodwinked the people, along with, in association with Government of India. They hoodwinked people, they emotionally blackmailed people, and that is how it came to become an emotional issue. But at least I can say one thing, that the public at large is behaving. They have not resorted to any sort of violence, and I know they have given peace a chance in 2019, and peaceful environment will continue.
But when you say that this issue will remain alive in the public's court, are you suggesting that this is still something you will take to the public before, let's say, the next Legislative Assembly elections?
Our taking or not taking does not make any difference, but this is an issue which will always be raked up.
Okay.
Always there will be one or the other view for it.
If in Rajasthan, low literacy levels have led to the BJP being elected, how did you come to power in Rajasthan 5 years ago? So have literacy levels gone down in your reign then?
Listen to me, viewers. Half of me is a Gaumutra drinking personality. Half of me is a bigot. Half of me, most probably, viewers, doesn't qualify to even live in the south according to the DMK. That's basically what is being.
In this entire neo-left-driven academia, it's been intellectually corrupted and intellectually infiltrated by pan-Islamist agenda, which says calling for the culling of a particular community or the dismantling of another is perfectly fine in the academic discourse.
The issue is that you cannot insult voters. What the DMK essentially has done for the Congress party is insult the very same voters that the Congress party, having lost their confidence now in the 2023 state elections, in 2024, the same Congress party has to go back to those same voters and canvass and ask for their votes.
Viewers, just as well that the Supreme Court has unanimously tossed Article 370 of the Constitution into the dustbin of history. Article 370 severely curbed the centre's writ over the troubled state, entrenching a sense of separatism, encouraging it, enabling it, viewers. With the pesky provision gone, we can get on with the much belated, delayed project of ensuring the full psychological, political and physical integration of Jammu and Kashmir with the Union of India. For 4 years after the article was abrogated by a presidential order, rubber-stamped by Parliament, the Modi government has toiled hard to mount a legal response, not only in its pursuit of One India, but also to ensure, viewers, that Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's sacrifice did not go in vain. Mukherjee is one of the founders of the BJP. You can see him there in the middle of your screens. The Supreme Court's verdict is a fitting tribute to this towering legend who died in 1953 under mysterious circumstances in a jail in Kashmir. Mukherjee was arrested there for protesting Nehru's advocacy for special status for Kashmir. Basically, for pushing Article 370 down the throats of the Indian Union. Mukherjee had coined the slogan, "Ek desh mein do vidhan, do pradhan aur do nishan nahi chalenge." That in one India there can't be two prime ministers, two constitutions and two flags. The pithy but potent vernacular expression would go on to thrive as one of the most durable stump slogans in India's political history. But the Supreme Court, viewers, has rewarded Mukherjee's tapasya. Its unanimous verdict blunts every argument thrown at the Modi government by its detractors and by the petitioners who have a real problem with the decision to abrogate Article 370. What were some of these questions and what was really the response of the Supreme Court? The first question was, Article 370 of the Constitution temporary? The ruling was straightforward. Temporary provision it was indeed, meant for just transitional purpose. So therefore, viewers, it could have been removed. Was the substitution of the Constituent Assembly valid? Remember, the Constituent Assembly of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, viewers, became, in one sense or the other, dissolute in 1957. It dissolved in 1957. It wasn't in continuation after that, the Legislative Assembly therefore took over from there. The ruling specifies that J&K surrendered sovereignty when merging with India. So its constitutional assembly had no longer any real overriding powers above and beyond that of the Constitution of India. Another question rather, can entire Indian Constitution be made applicable to Jammu and Kashmir? The ruling was straightforward. Maharaja Hari Singh's successor Karan Singh proclaimed Indian Constitution would prevail. Merger was similar to every other princely state that joined India after independence. Therefore, Kashmir could not be placed on a higher pedestal than the constitution of our country. Another question, are President's actions on behalf of Jammu and Kashmir legislature constitutionally valid? The ruling was straightforward. J&K does not enjoy any internal sovereignty, and therefore, viewers, because of this, it is the centre's writ that can prevail upon it. The Constituent Assembly also recommendations were not binding on the President. So that was another reason, viewers, why the President's actions on behalf of the Jammu and Kashmir legislature were constitutionally valid. Another question that was thrown up by the petitioners against the abrogation was whether the abrogation of Article 370 during President's rule is illegal or not. The ruling made it very clear, orders are not mala fide or an extraneous exercise of power. Very significant, viewers. And then, last but not least, is Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Act constitutionally valid? Could, for example, the centre demote a state to a union territory? A union territory, viewers, has been turned into a state. That's happened. There has been precedence, of course, for that, and we've seen it. But could the reverse be possible? Because this is unprecedented territory. The ruling sets that question aside also. The question is invalid, it says. As SG says, or the Solicitor General says, statehood will be restored. And LC also orders the assembly elections by September 2024. Now you could say that it skirted the issue, it didn't take it on headway, but it is at least prima facie agreed to accept the view of the Solicitor General, which is obviously the government's view in this particular matter. So viewers, unanimous verdict, unanimous. The Prime Minister, of course, took to social media and put out a lengthy statement. Remember, he has shown the courage of conviction and, of course, viewers, supreme self-belief, not just in his own government's ability to contain any situation that might have arisen out of the original August 5th order, but also, viewers, faith in the public, in the people of Jammu and Kashmir, that they will respond to this overture positively, and they have. So viewers, the Prime Minister today was thanking the public, the people that is, and was grateful. He said, today's Supreme Court verdict on the abrogation of Article 370 is historic and constitutionally upholds the decision taken by the Parliament of India on 5th August 2019. It is a resounding declaration of hope, he said. Progress and unity for our sisters and brothers in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. The court, in its profound wisdom, says the Prime Minister has forfeited the very essence of unity that we as Indians hold dear and cherish above all else. I want to assure the resilient people of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh that our commitment to fulfilling your dreams remains unwavering. We are determined to ensure that the fruits of progress not only reach you but also extend